I'm sorry.
Sorry. Is that all you can say?
I take full responsibility. If anyone is to blame for what happened, it's me.
So what did happen?
Welcome YouTubers and Doctor Who fanatics to another Big Finish audio review, and today we'll be taking a look at the very sorrow and pessimistic story, which is the Entropy Plague, starring Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, John Fielding as Tegan, Mark Strickson as Turlough, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa. It is written by Jonathan Morris and directed by Ken Bedley for this full cast audio drama. So in the E-Space trilogy which Big Finish have been doing, the Entropy Plague was the one I was most looking forward to because I personally love darker toned stories. And of course I'm not just going to be stating my points and review on the Entropy Plague, I'll be rating the whole E-Space trilogy. I'm not ranking the stories in order because my thoughts have changed on Mistfall and Equilibrium quite a bit when I re-listen to them. But that will be in a while in the overview video where I'll be ranking all the 2015 monthly range audios. So yes, that'll be a very long wait for that, and there's no point even talking about it yet because we haven't even got halfway through the monthly range for 2015 yet. But yeah, that'll be at December just to throw it out, yeah. But I will rate the E-Space trilogy as a whole, and of course the Entropy Plague. So if you want to skip straight to the review of the Entropy Plague, there is the time. So if you have or haven't skipped, let's begin the video. So for the cover art we have the Doctor Who logo, the Entropy Plague, Peter Davison's picture right by there. Love it where the Sandman arm just is pasted just behind him. So the actual cover art like interferes with this, which I quite like. And we have the 80s crew up here, the Peter Davison 80s crew, with Tegan, Nyssa and Turlough. We have the portal in the background. We have a Sandman looking very creepy by there. And of course, looking right dead in the face of it, it's a very creepy monster. And in the background we either have N-Space or E-Space with two planets by there. So yeah, cover art, it's a very nice cover art by Will Brooks. So for the side, if I could get the light on it a bit more, we have the Peter Davison picture. Again, quite small, but not going to criticise about the spine. The Entropy Plague, 197, almost there. And for the back, we have what this story is about with the blurb, which I'll place in the description. We have all the cast members by here, and it is 120 minutes approx. So if you open it up, we have the booklet and the disc, and I have just noticed it says the TARDIS and K9 are used under license in this story, which is a misprint on the disc. But yeah, it's only a little mistake. Everyone makes a little bit of mistakes, but yeah, it's a misprint on one of my CDs. Actually, it's on both of the CDs actually. So I'm not sure if this is like this on every single CD released by Big Finish, or is just mine alone. Put in the comments if you got the Entropy Plague and you have that misprint, so I'm not the only one. And of course we have other releases such as The Gathering Cobwebs, Whispering Forest, The Cradle of the Snake, Heroes of Sontar and The Kiss of Death, which are all Peter Davison stories. And we have the booklet. If we open it up, we have the director's notes from Ken Bedley, a lovely picture of the 80s gown right by there, looking lovely. And we have the writer's notes from Jonathan Morris, explaining that this story was actually written in March 2014, so it's been in the works for quite a while, this story. Doctor Who magazine. And then we have the next instalment, which I'm very looking forward to, which is The Defected. I'm really looking forward to it. If you like, John Pertwee style stories, I can tell it has the same sort of tone to it, so you should like it. Then we have the credits, and you can flip it over if you desire for the Peter Davison, the Fifth Doctor layout. Now to the review of the Entropy Plague. Now, I've actually heard mixed opinions on this. No one said it's bad, but some people range it to good to something absolutely brilliant in the Big Finish lines. Yeah, and this story, well, it's not really an experiment, but they're sort of testing it out, because I haven't heard that they've done this in a monthly range, so it's the first time. It's where they're adding narration to a monthly range audio. And you could say this is the early adventures of the Big Finish monthly range, that it feels just like an early adventure audio. A lot of people have been stating they're not a big fan of the structure. Well, if you're not a big fan of the structure, then I would stay away from the early adventures, because it's just the same, to be honest. I think it's a good way to tell the story, and I think how they implemented narration was quite good. I believe the Fifth Doctor was doing episode 1, then Tegan in episode 2, Turlough in episode 3, and then Nyssa in episode 4. So it wasn't really dull that they just let one person narrate it, like the Doctor, for example. So they took turns by every part, so that was a good decision. Now, the Entropy Plague is one of these when it's a very pessimistic story and very sorrow. But you can think there's practically no hope whatsoever it's going to be a nice story. There's going to be horrible bloodshed in it all the way through. And yeah, I like that sort of stuff, if I'm honest. It's my sort of story. And Jonathan Morris has done many other stories with a similar tone, such as The Tomorrow Windows, which is a very, very sorrow story, which is a BBC book. But yeah, Jonathan Morris has done this tone of stories quite a few times. And I would say you probably do have to get Equilibrium if you want to listen to The Entropy Plague, but not so much Mistfall because it feels very disconnected from the other two. So I would recommend getting Equilibrium first because it does start off this build-up of this ultimate sacrifice which happens in the story, which is mainly known as. And I'm not going to say who's the ultimate sacrifice in the story, but it's pretty predictable because it's been noted in many previous Big Finish stories, such as The Prisoners of Fate was one of them, Moonflush was one of them. So to the overall premise, so it is the final story in the E-Space trilogy. It's where the Great Darkness, which is known as the Sandmen, is spreading over E-Space, and the whole universe of E-Space is dying on the powerless planet which is called Apollyon, where there's a scientist, which is Pallister, who has guards which are called the Sentinels, which are robots, and the only way out of this world really is creating a portal. And this is a no-hope story, where this whole civilization is void and getting infected by the Sandmen. It's a very similar story to Utopia, where if you're infected, you're not going no near the base. So it's very similarly structured to Utopia. And Pallister does some, a bit of dark things while getting power or energy from living tissue, which I'll explain later about his character. But yeah, there's some very dark and quite sorrow stuff in this one, as I said. Now we can go to the characters of the Entropy Plague, starting with the Doctor, the Fifth Doctor, who was unbelievable in this story. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely the strongest the Fifth Doctor has ever been in a story ever. It's very similar. He has the same tone in this as Caves of Androzani, where he's willing to sacrifice himself to save his own companions and everyone else on E-Space. It's very similar to the Caves of Androzani style, where he would risk his own life to save millions, which I absolutely love. The Fifth Doctor doesn't really have any different dimensions to his Doctor, rather just being a human Doctor, but he's got this Cave of Androzani feel in it, which I absolutely love. And I love it with the interactions with the Doctor and Adric, which is Nyssa's son in this episode, played by Alistair Mackenzie, I believe. And yeah, some strong stuff. As the start of my video happened, you can hear them two talking. And so Tegan, who was not really a strong focus in this story, but still brilliantly nonetheless. Turlough, who had actually some very good dialogue, which I gotta admit, and yeah, it's a lot better than the TV series, I gotta admit. So yeah, Turlough did pretty damn good, I gotta admit. His strong story is definitely Equilibrium, and Nyssa, who was definitely her story. This is absolutely marvellous. I call it this. Tegan's story is Mistfall, Turlough's story is Equilibrium, and Nyssa's story is the Entropy Plague. I can't say what it is, but you have to just find out what and listen to it yourself, because it's truly brilliant in this, and some fab writing by Jonathan Morris. Tegan and Turlough weren't really our main focus, but it's more of a character piece to the Doctor and Nyssa. You could see you could take them a little bit out of the equation, but they were still brilliant nonetheless and had some good dialogue. Now for the supporting characters, we have Adric, who is Nyssa's son. I forgot her name of Nyssa's daughter, but it's irrelevant because she wasn't in the story. And it is by Alistair Mackenzie, who was a little bit mouthy at the start, I gotta admit, but it's for a reason why he is, makes a lot of sense why. And he's only really at the start of every single episode, like part 1, scene 1, part 2, scene 1, part 3, scene 1, part 4, scene 1. That's the only time you see his character in this story. Now Cherry Lan, who was Catherine Skinner, who was a good supporting character, but when she's under the machine, it's a bit like a Dalek's master plan sort of thing, where they age a lot, especially when you're infected by the Sandmen, which is very creepy. And of course, Robert Duncan, who plays the character Pallister, who was the scientist. Yeah, there's quite some dark stuff where he uses an energy source of living tissue to escape the dying world of E-Space from this huge plague, and he will not save anyone who's literally just been infected by the Sandman. And it's quite sad seeing everyone rage by the gates trying to get through while they're infected, and you see so many people dying right in front of you or infected into the Sandman. So a very touching story. And the last two, it is John Vos and Chris Finney, who played minor roles. That John voiced Branarack and the refugees, which were very good, and Chris Finney voiced the Sandmen, which are very, very creepy. A little bit underused, I gotta admit, but they were still pretty good. And the Sentinels, who were the robots, absolutely brilliant they were. Again, not too much of a purpose, rather by Pallister's sort of guards. That's pretty much it, but still very, very good. There are quite a few enemies in the story. I won't unravel the others, so I can pretty much explain every single part is very sorrow. I enjoyed every single part, and the ending to this story, the music as well, it really sets the tone of this story very well. Some of the story is very depressing, which matches some scenes fantastically. Some of it is like 2 Steps from Hell, which is absolutely fantastic, meaning epic. With any negatives of this story, it's actually quite similar to the Reckoning of the Rocket Man. It's just really the Sandmen. I would just like to see a little bit more of them, but they were still very, very creepy indeed. The Entropy Plague is an unbelievable story, which I absolutely love. I knew this one was going to be a good one, and I was correct. It's a fantastic story by Jonathan Morris. He's my favourite writer. I know how he writes, and I'm a fan of every single story he's done so far. He's my favourite Big Finish writer, and I really enjoy his work. The Entropy Plague can be very intense in some scenes, with very sorrow moments and a very ultimate sacrifice, which will give tears to a lot of fans. The Entropy Plague gets a 9 out of 10, an absolutely fantastic story to end the E-Space trilogy. It is an absolute gem of a 5th Doctor story. You can't be on your phone while you listen to this. You can't look on your laptop, I don't know, in Amazon or something like that, while listening to this one. You can't be twiddling your thumbs. You can't do anything like that. You just gotta shut your eyes and listen to it and picture it. That's all you gotta do. If you don't do that, you will sometimes be lost by the narration of the story, because some scenes are set after the Entropy Plague, but then as it goes on, it's before what happens in the Entropy Plague. So you have to pay full attention to it, or you will criticise it in some way, shape or form. So don't be on your phone while listening to this or something like that. Just close your eyes and listen to it all in one go. I did it, and it was marvellous. So thank you for watching the review of the Entropy Plague, and of course we have Equilibrium right by here, and Mist Force. So what would I rate the E-Space trilogy? Overall, I would rate it an 8 out of 10. It's a very, very good trilogy which Big Finish have done, and I cannot wait for the Locum Doctor trilogy. I'm not going to unravel my new ratings for Mistfall and Equilibrium, because yeah, my thoughts have slightly changed on them, so I'll unravel that in the overview video coming December, which again is quite a while. So I'll see you in my next video, which will be my guilty pleasures, which I'll be unraveling. A very controversial video. So of course, have a good one.